I'm Trina and today I am recommending my favorite survival stories. This video is part of the monthly recommendations group that was put together by Kayla Rain and myself, and down in the description bar below you will find links to Kayla's channel, to the Goodreads group for monthly recommendations, and the place to where everyone else comes and leaves links to their recommendations in case you want to know about more books than just the ones I am mentioning today. If you've been watching my channel for any amount of time, you probably already know how much I love survival stories. These stories always just drive home how resilient humans really are, and a few of them, yeah, you've heard me talk about them before, but it would not be my favorites list without them. But I also have several on the list that I haven't gotten a chance to mention very much, and I've got a mixture of YA, adult, and a comic series. The first one is The Hunger Games. It's very obvious why this is on my list, because this is an actual fight to the death survival story. Katniss's life in District 12 prior to being thrown into the arena was a very survivalistic setting because that society had regressed. They had very little electricity, they didn't have like a grocery store you could go to and just buy your dinner. She had to hunt and forage and trade, and they really were fending for themselves in this old type of lifestyle. And then of course when she is in the games, that's very much a survival story, and then as the series goes on, it's about surviving the government, the society. And then there's The Man vs. Self, which is much more evident in the later books, where Katniss is dealing with her own inner demons because of what she's been through and the psychological side effects. So overall, this is like the ultimate survival story. It's definitely an all-time favorite, so it had to be on this list. The next very obvious choice that I've talked about before is The Martian by Andy Weir. This is about an astronaut who finds himself stranded on Mars, and he has to figure out how to make it work. How to make water out of literally thin air. He does that. How to make food grow on a planet where things do not grow. How to extend his oxygen and water supplies for 4 years until a rescue team can be sent up to save him. And he does most of this with zero communication with anybody else. And it balances these terrible, dark, depressing themes with Mark's wonderful sense of humor and personality. I just love this story and the lengths to which it shows that humanity goes to survive, and I just, this is it. Like, this is it. This is the survival story. The next is Walk on Earth a Stranger by Ray Carson. This is a historical young adult novel that is set in the California Gold Rush era. It's about a main character that can sense where gold is in the ground. That character is trying to make her way across the country to California to go and seek out the gold. So we have this journey by wagon train, this very, very pioneer type lifestyle. As they're making their way across this trail, they are having to hunt and trade and find supplies, fend for themselves, as well as working with other people and deciding who can be trusted. And there are some really drastic, life-threatening moments that do take place as their wagon train has to make its way through the desert. It was a very gripping story to me, and if you like the survival element, I would highly recommend this book. The next book is another one that you've heard me talk about over and over again. I'm sorry, I had to include it. It's Not a Drop to Drink by Mindy McGinnis, as well as the sequel, which is called In a Handful of Dust. These are futuristic post-apocalyptic stories where the world has lost electricity, and therefore they've lost the ability to purify water. So the main threat in this world is finding sources of drinking water. And when people do have a source of drinking water, like say if they live on a lake, they are constantly having to defend that land from other groups of people that may just come in and want to fight and take it. This explores so many themes of survival, just making it day to day. Who can you trust? How does your mindset change in a world like this? Even though this is technically futuristic because the society has regressed, it did have a very frontier or pioneer type feeling to it because of the lifestyle, and that's what I really loved about it. This is one of those books that just really affected me, and it made me feel like we should not be taking for granted all that we have today, because what if it ever disappeared? The next is The Good Old Zombie Apocalypse, the Walking Dead comics by Robert Kirkman. These are just so well done. Basically, the zombie apocalypse has happened, and the series follows one man trying to survive it. He meets a lot of different people along the way, he lives in a lot of different locations, and it just explores like every possible thing that could happen in this type of a world. And not only is the threat these zombies, but those are like no big deal because you know what they want and they're slow moving. But the real threat in this world is, can you find supplies to survive, and can you trust other people in this world? Because there are other groups of survivors out there, and some of them are just downright evil, but some of them are really good guys that need help. And how do you determine the difference between the two? And there's also a psychological edge to it because some of these survivors just aren't dealing with it very well. If you're watching the show, big things that happen throughout the story happen to different characters on the show and in the comics, so there is still an element of surprise for you there. The close cousin to the zombie apocalypse is the alien apocalypse. The Fifth Wave by Yancey. And I know that there are a lot of mixed reviews for this book, but the survival aspect that I really loved was mostly found in Cassie's point of view. There are a few characters whose points of views that we get throughout this series, but Cassie had the most basic survivalistic storyline, and I really loved that about her chapters. She was trying to survive on her own, find food, find shelter. The really thrilling thing in this world is that the aliens have basically taken over human bodies, so you don't know who's human or who's an alien, so that's just an added level of thrill to this story. I did really love it. The last recommendation that I have today is For the Host by Stephenie Meyer. This is another alien apocalypse story. In this world, aliens are basically parasites, so they insert themselves in the human brain and they take over that body, and eventually that human's consciousness will disappear and fade out. But we are following a main character who still is there. She still knows what's going on. She's not fading. So the survival aspect to this story is that there are pockets of people left in the world that are hiding from the aliens so that they don't get body snatched, basically. So the main character does run into a group of them. They live in this system of underground tunnels, and I just really liked how they adapted to this new world. So I realized while editing this that I wanted to cut out a few books that I just didn't feel like completely embodied this genre, or I didn't feel like were my absolute favorites, and that left me with all books that are pretty well known. And you know, I think there's always value in hearing a popular book being spun a different way, because I know not everyone has read every book, but if this isn't the type of book recommendations that you're wanting, you can also check out the group and hear what other people are recommending if mine just aren't what you're looking for. Sorry. So those are some of my favorite survival stories, and if you have any survival story recommendations that you think I particularly would like, please let me know that down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the comments. Bye!